My daughter treated me like the hired help at her own wedding, but I responded in 11 languages and announced the sale of my company for $17.4 million. I never thought the most painful words of my life would be spoken on what should have been the happiest day. Today I'm going to tell you something I never thought I would. And if, for a second, this feels familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me to keep unburdening myself. My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 64 years old, and for 4 decades I built a simultaneous translation company in New York City from the ground up, one that allowed me to become perfectly fluent in 11 languages. I raised my 2 daughters alone after their father left us with a mountain of debt that took me 12 years to pay off, and a cowardly letter that just said, "I'm not cut out for this life." Last October 15th, I arrived at 6 in the morning at the Grand Astoria Ballroom, where my eldest daughter, Chloe, was getting married. In my hands, I carried a bouquet of white peonies I had specially imported from Holland, her grandmother's favorite flowers, and in my purse, the pearl earrings that had belonged to 3 generations of women in my family. The air smelled of the wax from the candles the florists had just lit, and the early morning sun filtered through the massive windows, creating small rainbows on the marble floor. Everything was perfect, just as I had dreamed for years, just as I had paid for years. $150,000 invested in every detail of that ceremony. The venue, the music, the banquet for 200 people, her Vera Wang dress, the honeymoon in Santorini, all of it came from my bank account, from my late nights translating for embassies and multinational corporations. When I entered the bridal suite where Chloe was getting ready, I expected to find my daughter nervous but radiant, like all brides on their wedding day. Instead, I found her yelling at the makeup artist because the shade of her lipstick wasn't the exact one she'd requested. "Mom, you're late," she said without turning to look at me, staring at her reflection in the mirror as she adjusted her veil. "The floral arrangements are in the wrong place. The coordinator doesn't know where to put the gift tables, and the orchestra says they're missing the sheet music you promised to deliver yesterday." "Good morning to you too, sweetie," I replied softly, placing the peonies in a vase. "Everything is taken care of. The sheet music is with the musicians, and I personally checked every table last night until 11. Everything will be perfect." Chloe looked at me through the mirror with that expression I had learned to recognize since she turned 30. Annoyance mixed with superiority. It was the same look she gave me when I reminded her I had paid her rent for 8 consecutive months, or when I suggested that maybe it was time for her to contribute to some of the wedding expenses that were, after all, hers. "Don't be so dramatic, Mom," she said as the makeup artist applied the final touch of mascara. "This isn't your day. Don't make a scene like you always do when something doesn't go exactly your way." Those words stabbed into my chest like a splinter I couldn't remove. Dramatic? A scene? Me, who had worked 16-hour days for the last 2 years to afford every whim of her perfect wedding. Me, who had postponed my own vacations, my own pleasures, my own life, so she could have everything she dreamed of. I took a deep breath and pulled the small blue velvet box from my purse. "I brought you Grandma Margaret's earrings," I said, opening it carefully. "I thought you might want to wear a part of her on your special day." Chloe glanced at the pearls with indifference, as if they were cheap costume jewelry from a street fair. "They don't go with my dress, Mom. I already have other earrings. Save them for another time." The makeup artist looked away, uncomfortable. The wedding planner, who had been organizing last-minute details, pretended not to have heard and quietly slipped out of the room. And I just stood there, holding the pearls my mother had worn at her own wedding in 1952, pearls that had survived the Great Depression, that had been passed from mother to daughter for 3 generations, and were now being rejected as if they were worthless. "All right," I murmured, putting the box away. "I just wanted you to know they're here if you change your mind." "I'm not going to change my mind," Chloe replied with a coldness that chilled me to the bone. "And please, go get ready. I don't want you to be late and cause delays. You need to be presentable at least." Presentable? As if in my 64 years of life I hadn't learned how to dress appropriately. As if I hadn't attended diplomatic dinners, international conferences, and meetings with ambassadors where my presence and my image had been crucial to closing million-dollar deals. I left the suite with my legs trembling and walked to the nearest restroom. I locked the door and looked at myself in the mirror. A woman with perfectly coiffed gray hair, wearing an elegant pearl-colored suit I had bought especially for the occasion, her face lined with wrinkles that told the story of 4 decades of tireless work and silent sacrifices. When had my daughter started talking to me like this? When had she begun treating me as if I were an employee instead of the woman who brought her into the world, who had raised her alone, educated her in the best schools, and supported her in every decision, even the wrong ones? I wiped away a tear that had escaped without permission and returned to the main hall. The ceremony was about to begin. The guests were taking their seats, and I had to smile. I had to be the proud mother, the perfect hostess, the woman who had managed to give her daughter the wedding of her dreams. But for the first time in my life, as I walked to my seat in the front row, I wondered if everything I had given, everything I had sacrificed, everything I had kept silent about for years, had truly been worth it. The organist began to play the wedding march. The guests stood up, and Chloe appeared at the end of the aisle in her white gown, radiant and beautiful. But I, her mother, felt more invisible than ever. During the ceremony, as the officiant spoke of unconditional love and eternal vows, my mind began to drift back to all those moments I had swallowed in silence over so many years. Every word about sacrifice and devotion echoed like a slap in the face, because I had lived those concepts long before Chloe even knew how to pronounce them. I remembered that December night in 1987 when Chloe was just 8 and woke up with a 104-degree fever. Her father had just left, another of his weekend getaways that mysteriously stretched until Wednesday, and I was alone with 2 sick little girls in a freezing apartment because we couldn't afford the heating. I spent the entire night applying cool cloths, giving her medicine every 4 hours, whispering lullabies as she mumbled deliriously in my arms. The next day, I had a crucial conference call with the German consulate, a contract that could save us financially for the next 6 months. I arrived at the meeting after 0 sleep, with swollen eyes and hands shaking from exhaustion, but I translated simultaneously for 8 straight hours without a single break. I got the contract, and when I returned home that night, Chloe greeted me by saying, "Mommy, why weren't you here when I woke up? The babysitter doesn't know how to make my pancakes the right way." Or that day in 1994 when Chloe was 15 and decided she wanted to study ballet at the School of American Ballet. The tuition was $900 a month, a fortune for a single mother barely making rent. I took on late-night jobs translating medical documents, transcribing recorded conferences with headphones on until 5 in the morning while my daughters slept. For 3 years, I got up at 4:30 every day to work those extra hours before they woke up. My hands developed early-onset arthritis from so much typing, and my eyes started to fail from the poor lighting. But Chloe never missed a single ballet class. She had her designer leotards, her professional point shoes. I even paid for private lessons with the Russian instructor that cost double. And do you know what happened when she turned 18 and decided to quit ballet because it wasn't fun anymore? She told me, "Mom, you never really asked me if this was what I wanted. You just assumed I liked it because I didn't complain." There, in that chapel, listening to my daughter's wedding vows, I felt a tightness in my chest that made it hard to breathe. I remembered when Chloe turned 25 and decided she wanted to move out. She didn't have a stable job. She had an art history degree and changed jobs every 6 months, but she demanded to live on the Upper East Side because it was the least she deserved after everything she'd suffered in her childhood. I paid her $3,500 security deposit, the first year of rent in full, the furniture, the dishes, even the sheets and towels. It was $20,000 from my savings, money I had put away to maybe, someday, take a vacation or renovate my own apartment that had the same decor for 15 years. Chloe moved out on a spring Saturday. I helped her pack, hired the movers, and supervised to make sure everything arrived in perfect condition. When we finished arranging everything, she threw herself on her new sofa and sighed, "Finally, freedom. It's about time I got to live without someone controlling my every move." Control? Me, who had worked to the point of tears so she could have the very freedom she craved. 2 years later, when her job as a museum tour guide wasn't enough to live on the Upper East Side, the calls started. They always came around the 28th of the month. as rent was due. "Mom, things are a little tight this month. Could you help me out? It's just temporary." And I paid. Once, twice, a dozen times, until temporary became routine, and "help me out" turned into "it's your obligation as a mother." For 4 years, between 2015 and 2019, I transferred $2,500 to her every month for her basic expenses, plus extras for emergencies, clothes, her car when it broke down, vacations with her friends because she needed to de-stress, birthday gifts for her boyfriend because she couldn't look bad. In total, it was over $150,000 that went directly from my bank account to hers. Money I earned by translating late into the night, taking projects on weekends, sacrificing my own comforts. Because while I was paying for Chloe's Upper East Side life, I was still living in the same apartment in Astoria, Queens, where I had raised her, with the same furniture from the 90s and the same 2003 Honda Accord that refused to die. And do you know what her reaction was when finally, in December 2019, I told her I needed to reduce that financial support because I had my own expenses and plans? "Mom, you can't do this to me now. I'm used to a certain standard of living. It's not fair that after giving me this for years, you're just taking it away. It feels like you're punishing me for something I didn't do." Punishing her for asking her, at 31 years old, to contribute at least half of her own expenses. But the moment that hurt the most, the one that still wakes me up some nights, was on her 32nd birthday. I had organized an intimate dinner at my place, invited her sister, 2 of her closest friends, and cooked her favorite meal, a complex jambalaya that took me all afternoon because I had to get the fresh shrimp and andouille sausage from Chelsea Market. I gave her a white gold necklace with a small but genuine diamond pendant, something I had been paying off in installments for 8 months because I knew she had always wanted one. When she opened it, she looked at it for a few seconds and said, "Oh, Mom, it's cute. Though I would have preferred the cash. You always buy things you think I'll like instead of asking what I actually need." Her friends fell silent. Her sister Lucy gave me an apologetic look, and I smiled as always, swallowing the humiliation. That night, after everyone had left, I sat alone in my kitchen with the dirty dishes piling up in the sink and the diamond necklace abandoned on the table. I wondered when my daughter had started talking to me as if I were a clumsy employee, instead of the woman who had sacrificed her youth, her dreams, her romantic opportunities, her financial stability, everything, absolutely everything, so that she could have a better life than mine. Now, sitting in that elegant venue that I had paid for, watching Chloe promise eternal love to a man who hadn't contributed a single dollar to the cost of his own wedding, I realized something that terrified me. Maybe my daughter had never seen me as her mother. Maybe to her I had always just been an inexhaustible source of resources, an ATM with feelings that she could activate with a phone call and a few strategically sweet words. The ceremony ended with applause and emotional tears from the guests, but I couldn't shed a single tear of joy. As everyone moved to the cocktail hour, Chloe approached me, bouquet in hand, a picture-perfect smile plastered on her face for the cameras. "Mom, I need you to take care of something," she said in a low voice, maintaining that radiant expression for the photographers surrounding us. "The gift table is a mess, and some guests are already asking where to put their envelopes. Fix it, will you? And please, make sure someone is watching it. I don't want anything to go missing." It wasn't a request. It was an order, delivered with the natural ease of someone accustomed to me solving all her problems without question. "Chloe, I'm your mother, not the event coordinator," I replied gently, trying to keep my dignity intact. "There are staff hired for that. You should be enjoying your special day." Her expression shifted instantly. The perfect bridal smile vanished, replaced by that cold stare I knew so well. "Oh, Mom, don't be like that. I'm just asking for a tiny favor. Or would you rather the gifts get lost and we have problems later? You know how these things work better than anyone." How these things work? Was she referring to the fact that I was the only one who handled problems while everyone else enjoyed themselves? That my role in the family was to be the invisible fixer of anything that could possibly go wrong? I walked towards the gift table, feeling my heels sink into the lawn where the cocktail hour was set up. It was October, but unusually warm, and my suit was starting to feel sticky. As I arranged the envelopes in alphabetical order, because it would be easier to account for them later, I overheard two older women commenting behind me. "Isn't that the mother of the bride? What is she doing organizing the gifts?" "Yes, that's her. Poor woman. You can tell they treat her like the help. My daughter would never make me work at her wedding." Their words felt like knives in my stomach. Was my humiliation that obvious? Was my role as the family servant so visible that even strangers could see it? Half an hour later, after I had finally organized all the gifts and found a member of the catering staff to watch over them, I returned to the cocktail hour, hoping for a moment to just breathe and maybe have a glass of champagne. But Chloe intercepted me again. "Mom, there's a problem with the music. The DJ says he's missing some songs from the list you gave him and the coordinator can't find him. Can you go talk to him? You have all the songs saved on your phone, right?" Again. Another task. Another problem that automatically became my responsibility. "Chloe, I'm trying to enjoy your wedding," I said, feeling my patience begin to crack. "I've been working since 6 this morning. Can't you ask someone else? Your husband, perhaps? James is busy networking with his colleagues from work. It's important for his career that he makes a good impression. And you already know the DJ. You spoke with him before. It's just easier if you do it." Easier for whom? I wondered as I walked towards the DJ booth, dodging guests who were laughing and toasting without a care in the world. Easier for Chloe, who could delegate any inconvenience to me while she posed for perfect photos in her immaculate dress. Easier for James, who apparently had more important things to do than deal with the details of his own wedding. The DJ was a young kid, no older than 25, who looked at me with some surprise when I approached. "Are you the event coordinator?" he asked, checking his laptop. "No," I replied with a forced smile. "I'm the mother of the bride. I'm here to help with the songs." "Oh," he said, and I saw a flicker of understanding, and maybe pity, in his eyes. "Well, I have the list here, but you're right. 3 songs are missing. Do you have them?" I handed him my phone so he could download the missing tracks directly from my Spotify account. As we waited, I couldn't help but wonder when I had become the keeper of every detail of my daughter's life. When had I become her unpaid personal assistant? When I returned to the reception, guests were already heading into the main ballroom for dinner. I looked for my table, number 3, where Chloe had seated the immediate family, and discovered my place setting had been moved. My card now read, Table 8. Table 8 was in the back of the room, next to the kitchen, where they had placed the less important guests. Some of James's co-workers who barely knew Chloe, distant relatives they hadn't seen in years, and me, the mother of the bride, shoved in a corner like a seat filler. I sat in silence as the waiters served the first course. Next to me was a woman who turned out to be James's great-aunt, an 83-year-old who told me she hadn't seen the family in 5 years because she lived in a nursing home in Cleveland. "And who are you, dear?" she asked as she picked at her salad. "I'm the mother of the bride," I answered, the words sounding emptier each time I said them. "Oh, how strange. And why are you over here with us? Shouldn't you be at the head table with the groom's parents?" I didn't know what to say. How could I explain to a stranger that my own daughter had relegated me to the back of the room as if I were a complimentary guest? During dinner, from my corner table, I watched the head table where Chloe and James received congratulations and toasts. I watched my daughter glow, laugh, and effusively thank everyone for every gift and kind word. But not once did she look my way. Not once did she seek my eyes to share the moment with me. But the greatest humiliation was yet to come. During the main course, a waiter tripped while passing the head table and spilled an entire bottle of red wine across the pristine white tablecloth. The liquid spread like blood, splashing onto some guests' shoes and creating a chaos of napkins and apologies. The event coordinator rushed over to manage the situation, but the damage was done. It was the kind of accident that happens at any event, something resolved with professionalism and discretion. But Chloe didn't see it that way. She shot up from her chair, her face contorted, her veil moving dramatically behind her. Her eyes scanned the room until they found me at my table in the back. And then she did something I will never forget for as long as I live. She raised her voice. That voice educated in private schools, refined with diction classes, and yelled so that all 200 guests could hear her perfectly. "Let my mother clean it up. She's good at this sort of thing. Mom, please, come over here and help fix this mess. The silence that followed was deafening. 200 people turned to look at me at once, as if my humiliation were the evening's entertainment. I could see the shock, the discomfort, the poorly disguised pity on the faces of people I had known for years. There was the director of the bank where I held my corporate accounts, her eyes wide with surprise. There were the Martins, our neighbors for decades, exchanging looks of disbelief. There was Mr. Herrera, a client of my company for over 15 years, with an expression I couldn't quite decipher, but it looked dangerously like pity. My sister Lucy, at table 5, gave a slight shake of her head and looked down, as if she couldn't bear to watch. James's parents looked at each other, clearly uncomfortable, probably wondering what kind of family their son had married into. And I, Eleanor Vance, a woman who had built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing, who spoke 11 languages fluently, who had negotiated international contracts with diplomats and ambassadors, who had single-handedly raised 2 daughters and turned them into successful professionals. I rose from my chair like an automaton and walked towards the head table. Every step on the marble floor echoed in my ears like the sound of my own dignity crumbling. When I reached the table, I knelt to pick up the shards of glass scattered on the floor. The event coordinator rushed over. "Ma'am, please, you don't have to do this. We'll take care of it. We have staff for this." But Chloe, from her throne as the immaculate bride, added with a smile that tried to be sweet, but sounded condescending. "Don't worry. She's used to it. My mom has always been very practical about these things." "Right, Mom? Practical?" Was that the word she used to describe 4 decades of silent sacrifices? After collecting the largest pieces of glass, I stood up slowly. A waiter took them from my hand with a look of respect and pity that was more painful than any insult. When I returned to my table, the 83-year-old woman took my hand. "Dear," she whispered, "in my 83 years, I have never seen a mother treated like that by her own daughter on her wedding day. If she were my daughter, we would be having a very serious talk right now." Her words were the final nail in the coffin of my patience. The moment for the mother-daughter dance arrived, a tradition Chloe had insisted on because it would look good in the photos. The song she had chosen was "What a Wonderful World," an irony so cruel I wondered if it was deliberate. As we danced, she smiled for the cameras, but her eyes were cold. "I hope you're happy, Mom," she whispered as we turned. "Everything went exactly as I planned. You even played your part." My part? The servile mother who paid for everything and cleaned up messes without protest? When the song ended, she gave me a cold, mechanical kiss on the cheek for the photos and walked away. I was left alone in the middle of the dance floor. That night, after the last guests left and Chloe and James departed for their suite at the St. Regis, which of course I had also paid for, I found myself alone in the empty ballroom. I left around 3 in the morning, my heels in my hand. It was there, sitting in the driver's seat of my old Honda Accord, my suit wrinkled and my makeup smeared with tears that had finally broken free, that I made the decision that would change everything. I pulled out my cell phone and dialed my lawyer's number. Arthur Ross had handled my company's legal affairs for 15 years. "Eleanor, it's 3 in the morning. Is everything all right? Arthur, I need you to start the paperwork first thing tomorrow morning to sell my company. All of it. I want you to contact that firm from Munich that made us an offer 6 months ago. Tell them I accept their price." There was a long silence. Arthur knew Vance Global Translations was worth far more than the $17.4 million the Germans had offered. But he also knew my voice when I had made an irrevocable decision. "Are you sure, Eleanor? This is a major decision to be making at this hour." "I have never been more sure of anything in my life," I replied, watching the ballroom lights go out one by one. "And Arthur, I also want you to review every automatic payment coming out of my personal account. All of them. Chloe's apartment, Lucy's car, the additional credit cards, the private health insurance, everything related to my daughters. Cancel it all. Tomorrow." "Eleanor, what happened? Are you okay?" For the first time in 40 years, I'm starting to be. I hung up and started the car. The next morning, my phone rang at 2 in the afternoon. It was Chloe. "Mom, where are you? We've been calling you all morning." "Good morning, Chloe. How's the honeymoon?" Fine, fine. But listen, we have a problem. The hotel is charging us for extras we weren't expecting, and we need you to wire us another $1,000. It's just for spa massages and some excursions we want to do. Another $1,000. After the $150,000 I'd spent on her wedding, after being treated like a maid. No, I said simply. There was a pause. What do you mean, no, Mom? It's just $1,000. It's nothing to you. I said, no, Chloe. I have paid more than enough for your wedding. If you want massages and extra excursions, you can pay for them yourselves. What's wrong with you? Are you upset about something? You know we're just starting our married life. We need your support. My support? Chloe, I'm hanging up now. We can talk when you get back from your honeymoon, but I will not be transferring another dollar today. Mom, don't you hang up on me. This is ridiculous. You've always been... I hung up. For the first time in 33 years, I hung up the phone on my daughter. It rang again instantly. I didn't answer. On the 5th try, I turned my phone off completely. That afternoon, sorting through papers, I found a notebook where I had been logging all of Chloe's expenses for the last 5 years. The figures were staggering. $198,250. Nearly $200,000 from my bank account to fund her life, her rent, her bills, her car, her vacations, even her therapist. $200,000. And not once had I received a sincere thank you. On Monday morning, I met with Arthur. The Germans are ecstatic, he informed me. They'll close in 2 weeks. Final price is $17.4 million. He confirmed all the automatic payments had been canceled. That same evening, Chloe showed up at my apartment. She had returned early from her honeymoon, her face a mask of fury. What have you done, Mom? The bank called me. My account is overdrawn. They can't process this month's rent. Hello, Chloe. Nice to see you. How was Santorini? Don't change the subject. Why were the transfers canceled? Why won't you answer your phone? I looked at her. My 33-year-old daughter, married for a week, screaming at me in my own home because I had stopped paying her bills. Sit down, Chloe. We need to talk. A single day of work, a single idea, or a single sacrifice. But I'm your daughter. Families help each other. Families help each other. They don't use each other. They respect each other. They don't humiliate each other. They show gratitude. They don't make demands. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the street where I had lived for so many years. The same reddish brownstone buildings. The same trees I had watched grow as I raised my daughters as a single mother, working late into the night so they could have everything I never had. Do you know what hurt the most about your wedding, Chloe? It wasn't that you made me work like the hired help, though that was humiliating. It wasn't that you seated me at the back of the room as if I were a seat filler, though that was painful. What hurt the most was realizing that to you, I was never your mother. I was your personal ATM. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you called just to see how I was? When was the last time you invited me to dinner and you paid? When was the last time you asked me about my dreams, my plans, my happiness? Chloe opened her mouth to answer, but no sound came out. She just stood there, silent, because we both knew the answer. Never. Every conversation we've had for years has revolved around your money, your problems, your needs. I've been the fixer, the financier, the free employee, but I have never been your mother in an emotional sense. Mom, I do love you. It's just that what, Chloe? That it's easier to see me as a resource than as a person? That you've become so used to taking that you never learned how to give? She got up from the sofa and started pacing my small living room with that nervous energy she always got when things didn't go her way. Okay, maybe I've been too financially dependent. But that can change. James and I can find ways to be more independent. You don't have to be so drastic. Chloe, this isn't just about the money. It's about respect. It's about how you treat me, how you talk to me, how you see me. At your wedding, in front of everyone we know, you treated me like I was your hired help. And you did it so naturally that it was clear that's how you truly see me. I was nervous. It was my wedding day. Everything had to be perfect. And that justifies humiliating me publicly? Your stress justifies you yelling at me to clean the floor as if I were part of the cleaning staff? For the first time since she'd arrived, Chloe was completely silent. I could see in her eyes that she was processing, maybe for the first time, how that order had sounded, how it had been perceived by the guests, how it had made me feel. I didn't realize it sounded like that. Chloe, do you know what an 83-year-old woman sitting at my table said to me? A stranger who lives in a nursing home and hasn't seen her family in years? She told me that in her entire life she had never seen a mother treated like that by her own daughter on her wedding day. I saw her eyes fill with tears, but not of remorse. They were tears of frustration from someone who was realizing her comfortable, subsidized world was about to collapse. What do you want me to do, Mom? Apologize? Fine, I'm sorry. Acknowledge that I've gotten too used to your help? I acknowledge it. Promise to change? I promise. But you can't destroy our relationship over this. Chloe, I'm not destroying our relationship. I'm trying to save it. Because as it is now, it's not a mother-daughter relationship. It's an employer-employee relationship, where I provide the money and you make the demands. I sat down across from her, meeting her eyes with mine. I want my daughter back. I want to get to know the woman you've become, beyond your financial needs. I want you to see me as a person, not just a resource. And for that to happen, we need to start from scratch. What does that mean exactly? It means that from now on, our relationship will be between equals. I will no longer pay your bills, and you will no longer expect me to. If you want to come for dinner, you'll come because you want to spend time with me, not because you need something. If you call me, it will be to ask how I am, not to ask for money. And what if I need help? What if there's a real emergency? Emergencies are discussed, not demanded. And they are appreciated, not taken for granted. Chloe, you are 33 years old, you're married, you have a college degree. It's time you lived like the adult you are. Chloe stared at her hands for several minutes. When she finally looked up, she had an expression I hadn't seen in years. Real vulnerability. Mom, I'm scared. I don't know if I know how to live without your help. I've become so used to you always being there to solve my problems that I don't know if I can do it alone. For the first time in that conversation, I felt a spark of hope. That admission of vulnerability, that honesty about her dependence, was more real than anything she had said to me in years. Chloe, you can do it. You are smart. You are capable. You are strong. But as long as I keep fixing your life for you, you will never fully develop those skills. And what if I fail? What if James and I can't afford the apartment on the Upper East Side? What if I have to find another job? Then you'll fail, you'll find a cheaper apartment, and you'll find another job. And you will learn, and you will grow, and you will become the independent woman you have the potential to be. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, a gesture that reminded me of the little girl she had been 30 years ago. Does this mean you don't love me anymore? The question broke my heart, because it revealed how little she had understood all these years. Chloe, this means the exact opposite. I love you so much that I'm willing to endure your anger, your misunderstanding, and your resentment to help you become the person you can truly be. Letting you remain dependent would have been the easy thing for me. This is the hard thing, but it's the right thing. Chloe was quiet for several minutes, processing my words. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, smaller. I don't know how to do this, Mom. I don't know how to be independent. For so many years I've been used to you, to me fixing everything, I finished gently. I know. And part of the blame is mine, because I enabled that from the time you were little. I thought it was love, but I realize now that I was actually crippling you. She stood and walked over to the photograph on my mantelpiece, a picture of the three of us when the girls were 8 and 10. We were in Central Park, smiling, holding ice cream cones I had paid for with the last few dollars in my purse after buying their new school shoes. Do you remember that day? I asked. Vaguely. It was summer, right? It was July. I had just gotten paid for a huge job, translating a week-long medical conference. It was the first good money I had earned in months, and instead of saving it, I spent half of it taking you both to Coney Island, buying you toys, ice cream, whatever you asked for. Chloe touched the picture frame with her fingers. You always did that. You always gave us everything we wanted. Yes, because when I was a child, my father left us and my mother had to work so much that we barely saw her. I grew up feeling neglected, without attention, without treats, without the little luxuries other kids took for granted, and I swore my daughters would never feel that way. Mom, but I was wrong, Chloe. Instead of giving you love with boundaries, I gave you everything without limits. Instead of teaching you the value of effort, I gave you the results without the process. And now I realize I did you more harm than good. Chloe turned to me, her eyes wet with tears. Is that what you think? That we're damaged people because of you? I think you are people with incredible potential, who have never had to fully develop it because I was always there to do it for you. And it's time for that to change. Our conversation was interrupted by the doorbell. Chloe and I looked at each other. Neither of us was expecting anyone. When I opened it, it was Lucy, my younger daughter, with a worried expression and several grocery bags in her hands. Hi, Mom. Can I come in? I heard Chloe was back from her honeymoon, and I thought you might need some support. Lucy had always been the more perceptive of my two daughters. At 30, she worked as a freelance graphic designer, and while she had also been financially dependent on me for years, she had always shown more awareness of the situation than Chloe. Chloe called me crying, saying you'd canceled all the transfers and sold the company. Is it true? It's true, I said, letting her in. And I suppose you're also here to lecture me for cutting off the payments for your car and health insurance. Lucy put the bags on the floor and sat next to Chloe on the sofa. For the first time in years, I had both my daughters in my living room at the same time. But it wasn't a happy family reunion. It felt more like a reverse intervention. Mom, Lucy said gently, I'm not here to lecture you. I'm here to ask what you need from us. Her question so surprised me that I was speechless for a few seconds. When was the last time one of my daughters had asked what I needed? What I need, I repeated, as if I'd misheard. Yes. Chloe told me what happened at the wedding. She told me the horrible things she said to you, how she treated you, and even though I wasn't right there to see it all, I did notice you were different. Quieter, more distant. Chloe looked at her sister in surprise. You think I behaved badly too? Chloe, you yelled at Mom to clean the floor in front of 200 guests. You treated her like she was part of the catering staff. Yes, I think you behaved badly. Very badly. But I was nervous. It was my wedding. And she is our mother, Lucy replied firmly. The woman who raised us alone, who worked until dawn to pay for our private schools, who gave us everything we asked for, and many things we didn't even know we needed. And you publicly humiliated her on the most important day of your life. Chloe started to cry for real, not the tears of frustration from before, but a deep sob that seemed to come from a place that had been blocked for years. I didn't know. I didn't realize how it sounded. Everything had to be perfect. Chloe, I said softly, perfection at the expense of other people's dignity isn't perfection. It's selfishness. Lucy came over and took my hand. Mom, I want you to know that I've been selfish too. Maybe not in the same way as Chloe, but I also got used to you always being there to solve my financial problems. I also stopped asking how you were, what you needed, what you wanted for your own life. Lucy, no, let me finish. When Dad left, you became our entire world, but we never became a part of yours. You were always the giver, and we were the takers. And that's not right. Chloe lifted her head, her makeup smeared and her eyes red. What can we do to fix it, Mom? Tell us what you need from us, and we'll do it. It was a question I had waited years to hear, and at first, I didn't know how to answer. What did I need? What did I want to be different? I need you to see me as a whole person, not just as your mother or your provider. I need you to be interested in my life, my dreams, my worries. I need our relationship to be a two-way street. And financially? Chloe asked in a small voice. Financially, I need you to be independent. Completely. Not because I wouldn't help you in a real emergency, but because as long as you depend on me for money, we can never be equals emotionally. Lucy nodded thoughtfully. That's fair, and it's probably what we've needed for years, even if we didn't know it. What if we can't do it? Chloe asked. What if we aren't capable of living without your financial help? Then you will learn. You will adapt. You will find a way. Chloe, you have a master's in art history and you speak 3 languages. Lucy, you're a talented designer with a growing client list. You are both smart, capable, resourceful women. You just need to stop acting like you're helpless. Chloe wiped her eyes with a tissue Lucy handed her. Mom, I know this probably sounds hollow after everything that's happened, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry for treating you the way I did at my wedding. I'm sorry for taking your love for granted for so many years. I'm sorry I haven't been the daughter you deserve. Chloe, you can be the daughter I deserve, but not by looking back, by looking forward. This isn't about regretting the past. It's about building something different for the future. Lucy got up and went to the bag she'd brought. I brought ingredients to make jambalaya. I thought maybe we could cook together, the 3 of us. Like a real family, where everyone contributes. It was a small but symbolic gesture. For years, when my daughters came over, I would cook while they sat and waited to be served. The idea of cooking together, of them actively contributing, was completely new. I would like that very much, I replied, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled a genuine smile. As we prepared the jambalaya, Chloe peeling shrimp for the first time in her life, Lucy chopping vegetables with almost comical concentration, and me supervising the process but not doing it all myself, it began to feel different. As if we were building something new on the ruins of what our relationship had been for so many years. Mom, Chloe said as she tried to figure out how to properly devein a shrimp, did you really sell the company for $17.4 million? Yes. And what are you going to do with all that money? For the first time in 40 years, that question didn't have an automatic answer related to my daughters. For the first time in my adult life, I could think about what I wanted. What would make me happy? I don't know yet, I admitted. But for the first time in decades, I'm going to decide based on what I want, not on what you need. And strangely, that answer didn't upset them. On the contrary, it made them smile. That night, after Chloe and Lucy left, each paying for her own Uber home, another small symbol of the shift that was happening, I was left alone in my apartment with a feeling I hadn't experienced in decades. Peace. Not the peace of exhaustion that I had known for years after solving others' crises and meeting needs that weren't mine. This was a different, deeper peace. The peace of someone who had finally set boundaries and been respected for it. A week after our family talk, I got a call from Chloe. It started differently. Hi, Mom, how are you? A simple question, but one I hadn't heard from her in years. I'm well, Chloe. And you? How are things with James? Hard, she admitted. We had to move out of the Upper East Side apartment. We couldn't afford it without your help. We found a smaller place in Bushwick. It's very different from what I was used to. I waited for the request for money, the suggestion of temporary help, the emotional manipulation disguised as urgent need, but it never came. It must be a difficult adjustment, I replied carefully. It is, but, Mom, I want you to know I'm not calling to ask for money. I'm calling because I want to tell you how my life is going, and because I want to ask how yours is. Those words moved me more than I expected. How is my life going? I repeated, savoring the novelty of the question. Well, I'm learning things about myself I never knew. For example, I discovered that I like to paint. Paint? Since when? Since last week. I was walking through the East Village and saw a painting workshop for adults. I went in on a whim and I signed up. It's something I always wanted to try but never had time for. That's great, Mom. What are you painting? Landscapes, mostly. Things I see on my walks. I'm not good, but I love the process. I love creating something just for the joy of it, without it having to solve a problem or meet someone else's need. Chloe laughed, and it was a genuine laugh. I'd love to see your paintings sometime. 2 weeks later, I got another unexpected call. It was from James, my son-in-law. Hello, Eleanor. It's James. Do you have a minute? Of course, James. What can I do for you? Actually, I wanted to call to apologize. For the wedding. For how we treated you. For how we treated you in general all these years. I'm working 2 jobs now so we can afford our new place, and Chloe is actively looking for a stable job. I've started to see her differently since she started being independent. It's like the ambitious, determined woman I fell in love with is coming back. A month after the wedding, I did something I hadn't done in decades. I took a real vacation. I went to Italy for 3 weeks. Rome, Florence, the Amalfi Coast. It was in Florence, sitting on a terrace overlooking the Arno at sunset, when I got a text from Chloe that made me smile. "Mom, hope you're loving Italy. Wanted to let you know I got a full-time job as a cultural coordinator at MoMA. It doesn't pay as much as you used to give me, but it's enough to live on. And for the first time in years, I feel proud of myself. Thank you for forcing me to grow up. I love you." I put my phone away and watched the sunset. For the first time, I felt I had done something completely right as a mother. I had loved my daughter enough to let her find her own way, even if it meant stepping out of mine. When I returned to New York, I found a new apartment in the West Village. Modern, bright, decorated to my own taste for the first time in my life. Chloe and Lucy came to help me move. While we were unpacking, Chloe found my first paintings from the workshop. "Mom, these are beautiful," she said, holding up a landscape of Central Park. "Can I have this one? To hang in my new apartment." The question surprised me. It was the first time in years Chloe had asked me for something that wasn't money, something that came from my creativity, not my bank account. "Of course," I told her, and I gave it to her with a joy I hadn't felt in giving her anything for years. Because for the first time, what I was giving her was truly mine, and she was receiving it with genuine gratitude. And if this story has touched your heart, leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because maybe, just maybe, this story will reach someone who needs to hear it.